Hi everyone, welcome to Pens and Needles. Today we're doing another ink review with KWZ Violet, which is a Iron Gall ink. Now these have been recommended as being safe for vintage pens, so we're going to check the pH, we're going to do a drawing and a writing test, and see how it behaves. I'm really excited. So let me open the box really quickly. So I got this from, I don't know how to pronounce this, Droomgools, I think, which was a store that I found in Texas. And they come wrapped in plastic, so there's no leaks. And it's this lovely shade of violet. This is Violet number 3. So when you look at the KWZ inks, you'll see that there's a number of different shades for red and green and blue and all sorts of things. So this is a handmade fountain pen ink. I'm really excited to test it out and see if it's vintage pen friendly, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's get to it! Alright everyone, we have our KWZ Iron Gall ink, handmade. I'm very excited to try this out. So this type of ink, Iron Gall, tends to be more acidic, so we'll take a look at that. Now if I wanted to be real precise, I would transfer, oh look at that color. I would transfer this into a different container so that the bottle remained unadulterated. Wow, okay. So that's our color that we start with. Now Iron Gall has a tendency to darken as it dries, and you can see that happening already. Wow, this is just fantastic, Violet number 3. I'm really excited to see how this shows up in our pH scale. So first I just want to double check my calibration, turn on my pH meter, pop it in. My number 7 is measuring as 7 right away. Rinse the heck out of it. Dry it off. So I'm drying it off in a paper towel, just to make sure that not too much of the water ends up in the ink container. Look at that, it's turned dark purple. That is fantastic. Alright, so let's test this out. We're going to pop that in there, swoosh it around a little bit, and let it sit for a few seconds to even out. I've got a smiley face already, and the numbers don't seem to be changing. It is 2.8 pH at 66.4, nope, 66.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 2.8 pH. So we can write that down, 2.8 for our first measurement. And take this out, rinse it in there. Oh, look at that color! Wow, that is like fluorescent pink. That is fantastic. Okay, wow. Wow, this color is just fantastic. It is, this color is my dreams, right? It's just amazing. To have a new clean rinse with the DI water. Because this one, since I already tested it with the buffer, might have buffer residue in the water. So I want to reduce the amount of influence that the water is having on the pH. Right away, 2.8. Settled. And tap this out into a, now it does cling a bit, so definitely going to want to make sure I thoroughly clean the sensor and everything afterwards. And you can see, I don't know if you can see that, maybe you can see over here, that the element, the sensor, is actually turned pink. because it has that pink coating of the violet on it. It's really important that we thoroughly rinse off. Yep. Now we're going to do one more test. But this should give you a general idea of how acidic these KWZ inks are going to be. And like I said, these are typically considered safe for vintage pens. Look at that. It's so pretty. So pretty. Okay. See here? Oh, it's just kind of wibbly wobbly, Ted. Careful. Be careful. Ted is being very curious. So. You can't go outside right now. This KWZ Iron Gall Ink. And just for reference, this is what it looks like when it's dried. It was a 2.8 level of acidity. So fairly acidic. Now this shouldn't be a problem for your typical modern pen or for vintage pens that are stainless steel, coated steel, or gold. So really the only thing to worry about is if you're using like a metal pen with uncoated components, or if you leave this in your pen for far too long, it can develop a crud. But many inks can do that. All right, so you can see it's got this beautiful bright color. It darkens very, very quickly on the page. Already gotten some on my hand. It is permanent, which is one of the nice things about, look at that, one of the nice things about the ink. But it's also important to remember that if your pen doesn't seal very well, so another thing I learned, because I did test this in my pen, vintage pen before the video, is this does not seal super tightly. It's not super airtight. And I'd say that after a day of use, the marks that you put down, you can see it's nice and dark there, the marks that you put down are no longer that bright pink. They're a little bit darker. They're a little bit closer to the final color as the days go on and the ink sort of stabilizes. So just be aware of that. If you have a really tightly sealing pen, that's better to maintain this amazing effect, right, that you're getting out of this ink. So you can see we've already done the Muji paper, which looks pretty nice. So in a finer line, it is going to be a lighter shade. So it is a shading ink, but it's not going to keep that bright pink color. And this is starting to get a little darker as it oxidizes. I have to say, overall, I'm really impressed with this ink. Overall, I'm really impressed with this ink, that it starts so bright and then changes color. It's just phenomenal to watch. All right. I read The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy in middle school, and I happened to be pretty lucky in that the movies were just coming out. So I remember distinctly trying to get people excited about the books that I was reading and having zero interest. And then as soon as the movies had come out and were popular, then everyone was talking about it and had completely forgotten that I had been obsessed. Just another reminder that coolness is in the eye of the beholder. It is very subjective to other factors. I'm trying to do a slightly messier Hobbit house next to this one here. Alright, so that is the Iron Gall inks. Now I thought it might be fun to just do some fun ink flourishes and that kind of thing, so I will do those as well. First I'll show you what they look like. Yeah, I mean, there is a bit of the issue where you put down a certain amount and it looks a bit darker, but I do think that overall the vintage pen is more, is stabilized further than the other inks that are currently still this bright pink color. Yeah, so this is the same basic formula of ink, same style of ink that monks would have used when they were making illuminated manuscripts. And the ink is still present on those. Sometimes if the ink was not formulated right, it's eaten through the paper because it's so acidic, but for the most part it is fine. Or if they used vellum, sometimes it would damage the vellum if it was too acidic. But most of the, if it was formulated properly, you wouldn't have that problem. Okay, so we just tested the KWZ Violet number 3 ink right here, and I am really impressed with this. I mean, it's one thing to see pictures online, and it's another to see the actual color in person, and it's pretty magical. I mean, this is like a really bright pink, and it was really fun to watch it change color as it was drying. I think that's one of the really fun things about Iron Gall inks is that there's this magical process as you're writing or drawing as it changes and shifts color, which if you like pens, you'd probably enjoy as well. It's also very acidic. So I measured it at a solid 2.8, which is super acidic, but that's not too bad for vintage pens. More acidic is generally okay. Now, make your own decisions for your own pens, but if you're curious about trying this ink out, then I would generally recommend it for a vintage pen, and I think it'd be fine. And this is a color you don't typically see in vintage pens. This violet has a lot of red in it, and generally red inks are avoided in vintage pens because some of the red dyes can stain your clear acrylic. Now, some other colors can also stain your clear acrylic, so be aware that it's always possible. But if you don't have any elements that would be stained by this ink, it might be worth a try. So if you're into inks, if you're into pens, definitely recommend trying out one of the KWZ inks because it's so cool. All right, thanks for joining me for this video. If you have any questions, please put them down in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.